I want you to go back to August 18th, 2013. SummerSlam, Los Angeles. Daniel Bryan stands in the center of the ring as WWE champion. He's just pinned John Cena clean to win the title, and 18,000 people are losing their minds. This should be everything. The validation, the proof he belonged. Then Triple H extends his hand. Bryan takes it. And in that instant, Triple H hits the pedigree, his finishing move, driving Bryan's face into the mat. Randy Orton's music hits, Money in the Bank cash-in, new champion, 90 seconds. The message is clear. The crowd can cheer for whoever they want, but WWE decides who gets to be the hero. Or at least, that's what WWE believed right up until crowds started proving otherwise. But to understand how we got here, we need to go back to the philosophy that built this entire system. There is a philosophy in wrestling called the airport test. Stand in an airport and ask which of these wrestlers looks like a star to someone who's never watched wrestling. For 40 years, WWE's answer has been consistent. Stars look a certain way. 6'4", 250 pounds of muscle, chiseled jawline. Hulk Hogan, The Rock, John Cena, Batista. Men who could stand in any airport and look like they belonged on a movie poster. This philosophy built an empire. It made WWE a billion-dollar company, but it also built a hierarchy. At the top sit the monuments, the chosen ones who pass the airport test. The wrestlers Vince McMahon sees as dollar signs and mainstream appeal. At the bottom exist the mechanics, the workers who can wrestle for 74 minutes and hypnotize a crowd, but who Vince looks at and sees nothing. Too small, too strange, doesn't have the look. And here's where the philosophy gets brutal. WWE's thinking went like this. These people could work, could have great matches, could fill TV time and make the monuments look better.
They could never be the face of the company.
What WWE failed to account for was what happens when audiences stop caring about the test. When crowds decide they're finished accepting the heroes they're given. When fans learn they have power when they hijack the show. And the first time this really happened, it started with a man WWE saw as a cook, not a champion. The story goes that during a creative meeting, Triple H looked at a photo of CM Punk and said, "He looks like he cooks at Waffle House." The metaphor was cutting. Punk could do the job, could satisfy customers, but you don't put the cook on the billboard. This was 2011, and CM Punk had been with WWE for 5 years. 5 years of learning exactly what it meant to be good enough for house shows, but not good enough for the spotlight. Understanding that requires looking at what Punk's actual week looked like. Monday was Raw, millions watching, where Punk would wrestle the opener to keep the crowd warm, then watch Cena and Orton close the show from catering. Tuesday through Friday were the house shows, the untelevised grind in places like Tulsa and Des Moines, where Punk would main event, tear the house down, and prove he could carry the company for 20 minutes a night. But come Sunday pay-per-view, the one night that actually mattered for mainstream exposure, the pattern reset. Punk would go on 4th, sometimes 5th, sometimes not on the card at all. This was the pattern for 5 years. At house shows where only hardcore fans showed up, Punk was treated like a main eventer. But on television and pay-per-views, where casual audiences and corporate sponsors were watching, WWE made it clear where he belonged, firmly in the mid-card, making the real stars look good. Then, in June 2008, came what should have been the breakthrough. Punk cashed in Money in the Bank and won the World Heavyweight Championship, his first world title. This should have been the launch pad. Instead, they framed it as opportunism, as a technicality. Even with the belt around his waist, Punk remained in the mid-card. At SummerSlam 2008, Punk defended his World Heavyweight Championship against JBL. The match went on in the middle of the card, not the main event. The show closed with a match that had nothing to do with either World Championship. The message was unmistakable. Punk's title didn't matter as much as whatever the monuments were doing. Then came September 2008 at Unforgiven, which should have been another defense. Instead, Randy Orton punted Punk in the head backstage before the match even started. Punk was stripped of the championship without ever actually losing it in the ring. When Punk won the championship again in 2009, the same pattern repeated. Solid matches, good performances, positioned in the middle of cards, never closing shows. The cycle was suffocating. Punk would be given a push, would start building momentum, crowds would get behind him, and just when it seemed like he might break through, WWE would slam on the brakes. They'd take the title off him and give it to someone who looked more like what Vince McMahon wanted a champion to look like. By early 2011, Punk had spent 5 years in this pattern. 5 years of being told he was good enough to fill time, but not good enough to be the guy. 5 years of main eventing house shows, then watching Cena and Orton close pay-per-views. 5 years of being the Waffle House cook, competent, reliable, but never someone you'd build a restaurant around. His contract was coming up in July.
The brutal honesty I'm known for. July 17th is the day my contract with World Wrestling Entertainment comes to an end.
He told WWE he was leaving. And here's where something beautiful and strange happened. June 27th, 2011. After Monday Night Raw went off the air, Vince McMahon handed Punk a microphone and told him to go out and air his grievances on live television. Tell the audience why he was leaving. Say whatever he wanted. What followed became known as the Pipebomb. Punk sat cross-legged at the top of the entrance ramp and spent 7 minutes systematically dismantling WWE's corporate structure.
The fact that Dwayne is in the main event of WrestleMania next year and I'm not makes me sick. But Vince McMahon's gonna make money to spite himself. He's a millionaire who should be a billionaire. You know why he's not a billionaire? It's because he surrounds himself with glad-handing, nonsensical yes men like John Laurinaitis.
He talked about WWE being run by people who'd inherited power through family connections instead of earning it. And then he said he was leaving with the WWE Championship. But maybe he defended a New Japan or Ring of Honor. The microphone cut out mid-sentence. Emergency commercial break. Within minutes, Twitter exploded. Everyone wanted to know, was this real? Had Punk actually gone into business for himself? The ambiguity was what made it perfect. Even though Punk had actually re-signed his contract 3 days earlier, the emotion behind every word was completely real. Everything he'd said about being held back, about management not believing in him, all of that was true. The crowds knew it because they'd watched it happen for 5 years. So WWE gave him what he'd been asking for, a WWE Championship match against John Cena at Money in the Bank on July 17th, in Chicago, Punk's hometown, with the storyline that if Punk won, he could leave WWE as champion. July 17th, 2011, the All-State Arena. 18,000 people packed into the building. The crowd was molten from the moment doors opened. When Cena made his entrance, the crowd destroyed him with boos. "Cena sucks," chants so loud they shook the building. Chicago was making it clear they wanted nothing to do with WWE's chosen star. Then, Punk's music hit. I don't know how to describe the reaction other than to say it felt volcanic. 18,000 people losing their collective minds. The building was shaking. People were crying. This wasn't about a wrestling match anymore. This was about 5 years of frustration finally finding a voice. This was every fan who'd ever watched WWE push someone they didn't care about while ignoring the person they actually wanted to see. This was catharsis. The match itself was exceptional. 33 minutes that told the story of everything we'd been talking about. Cena the Monument, the Chosen One, Punk, the Mechanic, the Waffle House cook, the person who'd never been good enough. Late in the match, Vince McMahon himself came down to ringside to interfere to make sure Cena won.
Boss, not that way. We're gonna do it. Punk! Jesus! Kennedy!
1, 2, 3. CM Punk was WWE champion. The building erupted. Not a pop, an eruption. 18,000 people screaming themselves hoarse. Punk sat on the entrance ramp with the championship belt over his shoulder, looked down at Vince, and blew him a kiss. Then he stood up and walked out, through the crowd, through the concourse, past security, out the back door, and into the Chicago night. The Waffle House cook walking away with WWE's most prestigious prize. This is what I meant at the beginning when I said wrestling at its best can create moments that are both fiction and reality at the same time. In storyline, CM Punk had just beaten John Cena and was leaving WWE with the championship. But in reality, CM Punk, the person the company had spent 5 years telling wasn't good enough, had just forced WWE to give him the moment anyway, through sheer organic crowd support. The crowds had hijacked the show. They'd made it impossible for WWE to present the story they wanted. They'd proven that organic belief was more powerful than any corporate marketing campaign. If you're enjoying this deep dive into how fans changed the game, do me a favor, hit the like button and subscribe to WrestleFun. It's the best way to support the channel and make sure you don't miss our next breakdown. Now, back to the script. But Punk's story wasn't the only time this happened. In fact, just a few years later, the same pattern would repeat itself. This time with a woman who spent 3 years being told she was only good enough to make everyone else look better. July 13th, 2015, Monday Night Raw. Stephanie McMahon announced the Divas Revolution. Women's wrestling was finally being taken seriously.
Women are making their mark, and it is time for us to make a change in the Divas division.
Becky Lynch, Charlotte, Flair, and Sasha Banks. For 2 of them, it worked. Charlotte won the Divas Championship within months. 6 feet tall, blonde, athletic Ric Flair's daughter. WWE royalty. Everything Vince wanted in a female star. Sasha Banks became the boss, the coolest character in wrestling, positioned as a future megastar. And then there was Becky Lynch, who became the third one, the friend, the sidekick, the one who smiled and lost matches. Understanding what that meant requires looking at Becky's actual record. In 2016, her first full year on the main roster, Becky Lynch won 47% of her televised matches, less than half, a coin flip with worse odds. Now, this wasn't a heel run where losing made sense. This wasn't a storyline about an underdog fighting from the bottom. This was 3 years of being positioned as the person who made Charlotte and Sasha look better. When the brand split happened in July 2016, Becky was drafted to SmackDown. Finally, her own show, her own opportunity. Then came September 11th, 2016 at Backlash. She won a 6-pack challenge to become the first ever SmackDown Women's Champion. Finally, her moment, historic. But then, December 4th, 2016 arrived. She lost the title to Alexa Bliss, 84 days as champion. Then didn't win it again for 2 years. What followed was a pattern so consistent it became suffocating to watch. Becky would beat lower card talent, which WWE would use as justification to give her a title shot. Then she'd lose the title match. The momentum would be used to set up the opportunity, then stripped away at the moment it should have paid off. From late 2016 through all of 2017, the pattern never changed. Becky would pin the champion in a non-title match. WWE would announce she'd earned a title shot. And when the moment arrived, Money in the Bank, SummerSlam, Hell in a Cell, she would lose. Sometimes clean, sometimes through interference. Always just enough to reset her momentum back to zero. Different shows, same result. The pattern never changed. 2 years of this. Not a losing streak that would at least be a storyline, something with narrative purpose. This was just existence. Becky was there, reliable, good enough to fill time, popular enough that crowds liked her, skilled enough to have great matches, but never someone who would actually win when it mattered. And the truly suffocating part was how WWE structured these losses. WWE would announce she'd earned a title shot. Then WWE would add Charlotte to the match at the last minute, making it a triple threat, and walk out with the belt, while Becky's momentum reset to zero. This happened in 2016, it happened in 2017, it happened in 2018. This was Becky's role for 3 years. Make Charlotte look good, make Sasha look good, take pins so the people WWE actually cared about didn't have to lose momentum. By mid-2018, something shifted. Becky started winning matches again, building momentum. Then she pinned SmackDown Women's Champion Carmella in a non-title match. And WWE announced SummerSlam 2018, Becky Lynch versus Carmella for the championship, one-on-one. Finally, after 3 years of being the third wheel. Except WWE added Charlotte Flair to the match at the last minute. The same pattern that had defined Becky's entire career. Build her up, give her hope, hand the opportunity to Charlotte at the moment it should pay off. August 19th, 2018, Barclays Center in Brooklyn.
Here comes Charlotte. Natural selection. Charlotte Flair.
Charlotte Flair was the new SmackDown Women's Champion. Not Becky, Charlotte, again. The crowd booed, not heel heat, genuine, we're sick of this booing. 3 years of watching Charlotte take spot after spot that Becky had earned. 3 years of watching nepotism win out over hard work. The crowd was done. Charlotte celebrated in the ring, held the championship belt, then turned to Becky and extended her hand. Sportsmanship, respect. Becky Lynch looked at the extended hand, looked at Charlotte holding the championship that should have been hers, looked at the crowd who was just as tired of this pattern as she was.
Stage. Oh, Becky!
And beat the absolute hell out of Charlotte Flair. The crowd erupted, not booing but cheering, chanting,
Opportunity to our best friend,
like she'd just won the championship instead of attacking the new title holder. Now, this was supposed to be Becky's heel turn. WWE's plan was to position her as the villain, the jealous friend who couldn't handle Charlotte's success. The crowd refused. 3 years of nepotism, 3 years of being the third wheel. This wasn't a heel turn, this was justice. WWE tried to make Becky the bad guy. She cut promos about being sick of playing nice, sick of watching Charlotte get everything handed to her. The crowd cheered louder, started calling her the Man, a direct shot at Charlotte's father. At Hell in a Cell on September 16th, 2018, Becky finally beat Charlotte for the SmackDown Women's Championship. After 3 years of losing, she had the belt. She started cutting promos in the style of Stone Cold Steve Austin. The crowd ate it up. Becky Lynch merchandise started selling at near John Cena levels. She was becoming the most over person in the entire company. But WWE had plans for WrestleMania 35 that didn't include Becky Lynch. The plan was Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte Flair, the UFC legend versus WWE royalty. Historic. Not Becky Lynch, Charlotte. Then came November 12th, 2018, Monday Night Raw. During a brawl, Nia Jax, known throughout the company for being reckless and dangerous, threw a wild, stiff punch that connected directly with Becky Lynch's face. For real. A legitimate shot that broke Becky's nose and shattered it in multiple places. Blood poured down Becky's face, but Becky stood on the entrance ramp with her nose destroyed and her face covered in blood in defiance. Someone in the crowd snapped a photo. Within minutes, it went viral. The image was immediately compared to Stone Cold Steve Austin bleeding at WrestleMania 13, Becky Lynch with her face covered in blood, refusing to back down. The photo became the visual representation of everything she'd been fighting against for 3 years. Survivor Series was supposed to be Becky versus Ronda Rousey. Doctors pulled Becky due to the concussion. Charlotte took her spot again. For the third time in 3 years, Charlotte took an opportunity that Becky had earned. By January 2019, the crowd had had enough. At the Royal Rumble, when Becky eliminated Charlotte to win, the building came unglued. 80,000 people screaming themselves hoarse. This was Becky's moment. This was the story. Becky Lynch versus Ronda Rousey at WrestleMania 35. But then WWE added Charlotte to the match, made it a triple threat. The crowd hated it. Still, the moment arrived. April 7th, 2019, MetLife Stadium, WrestleMania 35, main event. The first time women had ever closed WrestleMania. 21 minutes of chaos. Then, in the closing moments, Becky rolled up Ronda Rousey. The referee counted 1, 2, 3. The crowd exploded. Not a pop, an eruption. Becky Lynch had just main evented WrestleMania, had just beaten Ronda Rousey and Charlotte Flair, had just become the first ever dual women's champion in WWE history. 3 years of being the third wheel. 3 years of 47% win rates and opportunities handed to Charlotte. 3 years of smiling through the frustration of being told she was good enough to be on television, but not good enough to win when it mattered. And now, Becky Lynch was on her knees in the center of the ring, with both championships held high, tears streaming down her face, 80,000 people screaming for her. She'd done exactly what Punk did 8 years earlier, forced WWE to change their plans through sheer organic crowd support. The crowds had hijacked the show again. But if Punk and Becky proved that crowds could force WWE's hand, there was one wrestler whose story took it even further. One wrestler who the company tried everything to keep out of the main event. And when I say everything, I mean everything. To understand what happened after SummerSlam 2013, you need to understand the 2 years that came before it. The 2 years where WWE made it crystal clear that Daniel Bryan would never be the guy. April 1st, 2012, WrestleMania 28, Sun Life Stadium in Miami. 78,000 people popped in. Daniel Bryan walked to the ring as World Heavyweight Champion, ready to defend his title against Sheamus. The bell rang 18 seconds. The World Heavyweight Championship had changed hands in 18 seconds. 78,000 people sat in stunned silence. Then the boos started. Not heel heat, but genuine disgust. Backstage, Vince McMahon was reportedly thrilled. This had made Sheamus look decisive. That it had destroyed Daniel Bryan's credibility wasn't a concern. Bryan was the mechanic. His job was to make the monuments look good. The next night on Monday Night Raw, before the show even officially started, the crowd began chanting, "Yes, yes, yes." over and over. This wasn't support for heel Daniel Bryan, this was protest. Every single segment, regardless of who was involved, the chants would start again. The crowd was making it clear they weren't interested in the show WWE wanted to present. They wanted Daniel Bryan. So WWE's solution was to make Daniel Bryan a comedy act. June 2012 saw them pair Bryan with Kane, the 7-foot demon character. Together, they became Team Hell No. The gimmick was simple. They hated each other and had to attend anger management therapy together. Weekly segments showed Daniel Bryan and Kane sitting in a circle with a therapist named Dr. Shelby talking about their feelings. Every week, Dr. Shelby would make them hug. Daniel Bryan, this incredible technical wrestler who'd been world champion, would hug this 7-foot demon character, smile at the camera, and tell Kane he appreciated him. The segments were legitimately funny. The crowd enjoyed them. Team Hell No became tag team champions. But week after week after week, something insidious was happening to Daniel Bryan's credibility. He was transforming from a potential main event threat into the lovable weirdo, the comedy guy, someone who couldn't be taken seriously as a world title contender, which was exactly the point. By late 2012 and throughout 2013, Daniel Bryan was more over than he'd ever been. Yes chants erupted in every arena. His merchandise sold at near John Cena levels. Crowds chanted for him constantly, even during segments that had nothing to do with him. And yet, he was further from the main event than he'd been in years. Then, summer 2013, Vince McMahon finally said out loud on television what everyone suspected he actually believed. He looked at Daniel Bryan and called him a B+ player. Good enough to fill time, good enough to wrestle, never good enough in their eyes to lead. Not A+, not main event material, not the guy, B+. Good enough for the mid-card, good enough to sell some merchandise to hardcore fans, but not good enough to be the face of the company. Because he didn't look like a star, because he was too small, because he was vegan, because he had a scraggly beard instead of a clean-cut look. This wasn't just storyline. This was Vince McMahon's actual opinion being delivered through a fictional character, which brings us back to August 18th, 2013, SummerSlam. Against every expectation, WWE booked Daniel Bryan versus John Cena for the WWE Championship. The match was excellent, 26 minutes of back-and-forth action. Then Bryan hit the running knee. But as we saw in the beginning, the confetti didn't fall for Bryan. It fell for the system. Triple H turned the pedigree, hit Randy Orton, cashed in. 90 seconds was all it took to steal the validation he had earned. WWE's plan for the following months was simple. Randy Orton was the chosen one. Bryan's role was to chase the title, get close, and fail. Week after week, Bryan would build toward title opportunities. Week after week, WWE would find ways to screw him out of winning. Fast counts, disqualifications, outside interference. The crowd rejected that story completely. Raw after Raw, the loudest chants in any arena were for Daniel Bryan. Then came October 27th, 2013. Hell in a Cell. Daniel Bryan versus Randy Orton inside the cage. The special guest referee was Shawn Michaels, Daniel Bryan's childhood hero. Late in the match, Bryan hit the running knee. He had Orton beaten dead to rights, but the referee, Shawn Michaels, was down. Triple H entered the ring to interfere, and Bryan took him out too. Seeing his best friend attacked, Shawn Michaels stood up and super kicked Daniel Bryan in the face. Randy Orton draped an arm over him. 1, 2, 3. Then WWE just moved on. Dropped Bryan from the WWE Championship scene entirely. Placed him in a completely different storyline with the Wyatt family. WWE had spent 2 months building Bryan as the underdog, fighting for the championship, and now they were putting him back in the mid-card where he belonged. Then came January 26th, 2014, Royal Rumble. Daniel Bryan wrestled Bray Wyatt earlier in the night, lost clean. Kayfabe injury to explain why Bryan wouldn't be in the Royal Rumble match. Now the Rumble match is WWE's second biggest show. 30 men enter at timed intervals. Last one remaining wins a championship match at WrestleMania. The crowd was confused when Bryan didn't come out at numbers 1 or 2. Upset when he didn't show up at numbers 3 through 10. By number 15, Confusion was turning to anger. Entrant number 30, the final spot. The spot everyone expected to be Daniel Bryan was Rey Mysterio. The crowd turned venomous, started booing Rey Mysterio, one of the most beloved wrestlers in company history, out of the building because he wasn't Daniel Bryan. Batista won the match. He was a returning part-timer, the chosen WrestleMania main eventer. The crowd booed him for 10 straight minutes. Daniel Bryan chants drowning out everything. WWE's plan was clear. Batista versus Randy Orton for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania 30. Two giants, two monuments, two guys who looked like stars. Crowd rejected it completely. For the next 2 months, WWE couldn't run a single show without the crowd hijacking it. Yes chants during matches that had nothing to do with Daniel Bryan. Crowds turning on every segment that didn't feature Bryan.
When after a couple months after that, and it was still happening, I was like, oh, okay. This is gonna be here for a bit.
Then came March 10th, 2014, Monday Night Raw, Chicago.
Going to take it anymore. We are one. We stand.
Then fans started jumping the barricade, dozens of them. They were planted fans. This was a worked segment, but they were playing their roles with genuine passion because they actually believed. They filled the ring, refused to move.
There, now we're gonna get it settled.
Triple H tried to talk over them. He couldn't.
Oh boy.
The chants got even louder.
If I beat you at WrestleMania 30, I get added to the WWE World Heavyweight Championship match.
The crowd exploded. After 5 months of hijacking shows, the crowd had finally won. WWE had surrendered. So it all came down to this. April 6th, 2014. Mercedes-Benz Superdome in New Orleans. WrestleMania 30. 75,000 people popped in. Opening match, Daniel Bryan versus Triple H. If Bryan wins, he's added to the main event. If he loses, he goes home with nothing. The match was brutal. 25 minutes of Triple H systematically working over Bryan's shoulder. This was WWE's COO, both in storyline and reality, trying to keep the mechanic out of the main event. Bryan kept fighting back, kept refusing to stay down. Then, Daniel Bryan had won. He was in the main event. 7 hours later, Daniel Bryan versus Batista versus Randy Orton. Bryan had already wrestled 25 minutes, was exhausted. His shoulder was legitimately injured. Batista and Randy Orton were completely fresh. The first half of the match saw Batista and Orton systematically destroying Bryan, powerbombing him through announce tables, hitting their finishers, targeting the injured shoulder, and the crowd never stopped believing. Yes, 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 for 23 straight minutes. Then Bryan started rallying, building momentum, building toward his finishing sequence, the crowd getting louder with every move. Finally, Bryan trapped Batista in the yes lock in the center of the ring. Batista fought against it, but couldn't escape. His hand raised once, twice, 3 times, slapped the mat. The bell rang. Daniel Bryan was WWE World Heavyweight Champion. 75,000 people erupted, tears streaming down Bryan's face, the championship belt raised high above his head. Here's what nobody tells you about moments like this. They only happen because someone refused to believe the test, and because crowds finally refused to accept it. Refused to accept that stars had to look a certain way. Refused to stay in their place. Vince McMahon is gone. The era of the monuments is fading. But the philosophy? The idea that some people just look the part and others don't? That never really goes away. It just changes shape. Somewhere right now, there is a kid wrestling in a gym in front of 50 people who is being told they don't fit the mold. Someone is being told they're too small, too strange, or just a B+ player. But if history has taught us anything, it's that the mold doesn't matter anymore. We spent 40 years letting a corporation tell us who our heroes were supposed to be. We spent the last decade realizing we didn't have to listen. The airport test built the empire, but it was the fans who decided who actually lived in it. And the next time they try to tell us who our heroes are supposed to be, we won't just hijack the show, we'll rewrite the script. The airport test might be old, but the system hasn't changed. To see how WWE tried to suppress the most recent organic movement, click here for the LA Knight story. And for more on the icons who truly built this business, check out my Superstar Stories playlist.